What's up, guys? We're back with another video log, and today I want to talk about autoregulation and how you can incorporate it into your training. Now, autoregulation is the concept that you're not always going to be your best on every day, and you're not always going to be your worst on every day. I know it's mind-blowing, right? But a lot of us will go into the gym and we'll set like a new 5-rep PR or 10-rep PR or a single 1-rep max PR, and we'll go, that's just what it is. And we'll hold ourselves to that every single time we go in the gym. And I think intuitively we know that that's not always a reasonable expectation. And so why are we going to force ourselves to be held to that? Okay, maybe sometimes we feel better, but a lot of times we'll probably feel worse. So I want to discuss this concept of autoregulation, and to do it, we will use the BioLane wipe-off board. So one of the basic tenets, the first way that autoregulation really popped up was the Bulgarians, and they would do what was called training maxes. And so they would go into the gym every day, and let's just say squat. They would work up to a 1-rep max. Now, it would be a non-psyched up kind of just walk up to the bar or whatever they could do that day max, okay? And then they would base their training volume and weights off of that max. And so let's say that they're planning to do 80% for 5x5. Well, if they go in and they feel really good and they hit 500, let's say their normal max is 520, 530, but they hit 500, they feel really good. Then they're going to do 5x5 with 420. But, no jokes, by the way. But if they feel not so good, maybe they only hit 460 as their training max, well, then they're only going to do 368 pounds for the 5x5. So what does that do? Well, that does a couple things. One, if you're like really under recovered and you're feeling really badly, now by hitting that lower max, if you're under recovered, you're feeling bad, you're going to come in, you're going to hit a lower training max, and so your workout's going to be less intense, and well, not less intense because the percentage is still the same, but it is going to be less weight and it's going to be less total volume, and so it's going to give you a chance to recover for your next session. It's also going to reduce the chance that you're going to get injured because you're trying to force yourself to stick to a set percentage. Another way you can do it is by what's called the RPE scale, okay? Because it's not always reasonable for us to go in and work up to a training max every day. I've done conservative maxing. It beats you the hell up, even if you're being reasonable with it. So we can use something called rate of perceived exertion. Mike Tuchschere's really popularized this recently. And so this is, instead of working up to an individual percentage, whereas here we're working up to 80%, you say, okay, I want you to 5x5 at an 8 RPE, okay? Now RPL is a scale of 10, RPE is a scale of 10. So with 10 being, that was the hardest set you could do, you simply could not have done another rep. 10 was failure, okay? So like a 9 would be you had 1 left in the tank, or an 8 would be there were 2 left. Now I think that this gets a little bit confusing. Like let's say you were doing a 3-rep max and wanted to do let's say you want to do RPE 6 with 3 reps. How would that work? It wouldn't. So I kind of look at this a little bit more, and I know a lot of people will probably disagree with me, almost like percentages. Okay, RPE 9 is 90% of my maximum effort, or RPE 8 is 80% of my maximum effort, that sort of thing. More by a feeling. At the end of the day, there's no real wrong way to use it. It just depends on what makes sense for you. So, but basically what this says is, like, let's say you know what your RPE 8 feels like. Well, if you come in and the weight's feeling really heavy, you're going to have to reduce the weight to feel like an RPE 8 at a 5x5. But let's say you feel really good. Maybe your normal is 400 pounds in a 5x5, but you feel really good, just like you would have up here, and you do your first set 5x5, and it felt like a 6.5, 7 RPE. Okay, I'll bump the weight up a little bit, right? And then your next set, it feels like a 7.5 RPE. Okay, I'll bump it up a little more. And then your next set, okay, it feels like an 8 RPE, and so you stay with that. Okay, and so that's one way you can adjust things. And so if you wanted to hit a set to failure, you would say 9.5 or 10 RPE, where you couldn't do another rep. All right, so that's more by feel. One of what I think will be kind of the next generation of ways to train, especially for powerlifters, is using bar velocity. Okay, so for a long time we only had what was called the Tendo, and the Tendo, shout out to Monster, looking for sponsorships, just saying. The Tendo was a way to measure bar velocity. Okay, now Tendos are expensive, about $1,800, but now you have a lot of things out there like the Beast training app. You have Open Barbell, which actually has been validated to be better than the Tendo, at least from my understanding by the scientific community. It's actually been validated to be better. And it's only, I think it's like $250. So what you would do is you want to construct the velocity numbers, okay, based on your warm-ups. So what you could do is you could go in and let's say my last warm-up. For me, my last warm-up is always a single at about 80%. Well, if I know my single at 80% on a normal day, like let's say I could go in and over 20 workouts, I get an average of what my last 80% single is. And that 80% single is about 0.35. Now for me, it's actually not. It's like, mine's probably like 0.2 or lower. I'm a very slow squatter. But for the average person, you know, it's probably gonna be a little bit higher. So 0.35 meters per second, all right? If I come in and I hit that last single and it's 0.4 meters per second, I'm feeling good. I can probably up the weight a little bit off of what I might have planned, all right? But if it feels really slow, let's say it's a 0.3 or lower, I can reduce the weight, okay? And so it's kind of like doing a training max without having to beat yourself up doing a training max, okay? I think a really good way to use these sorts of things, if you don't want to buy one of these, but you still like the idea of doing set percentages, is you can do set percentages, but with the caveat that it says no higher than this RPE. So maybe I want to hit 5x5 at 80%, but it says no higher than 8.5 RPE, right? So if I go above that, I have to back off the weight. All right, if it feels like I'm grinding, I have to back off the weight, right? So, but I think this velocity stuff would be great because it's not how you feel. It's an objective feedback, because I've done squats where I felt terrible and then I'll look at the video and go, oh, that looks fine. And then I've done squats where they felt great, and then I looked at if I was using a velocity device, I felt great, and I looked at the velocity and I'd be like, what the hell? 0.15, you know? So this is great because it's actually objective. There's no feels involved with this. This is all based on objective data. All right. And then one more that I think that can be useful, that I think is the way most people could actually auto-regulate, is weekly auto-regulation. So like you can have flexible programming. So let's say you've got 2 squat days a week. One's a heavy day, one's a lighter day. And let's say that your perceived hardest day is that heavy day. Okay, now some people, they will say maybe that lighter day for more reps is harder for them. Well, then you can do the opposite. But let's say that heavy day is the perceived hardest day. If you have 2 days a week, what's to say you have to squat Tuesday and Saturday, or Monday and Friday, or whatever it is? If you come in and you don't feel good, why not do the easier one on a day you don't feel good, and then it's more likely that later in the week that you'll feel better when you go to do your hard one. Or maybe you feel really good early in the week, get your hard session out of the way, and then your other day is going to be easier, right? So you can be flexible with your programming that way. And so, I mean, you can even do this for 3 days a week. Like let's say you know, okay, this 5 rep day is my hardest day, or this 10 rep day is my hardest day, or whatever it is. You can program that to whenever you go in, the first day you go in and feel really good, you do your hardest session. And then when you've got 2 left, maybe your next day, I feel pretty crap. Well, you do your easiest one. And the next day, you know, maybe you feel crap, maybe you feel good, but you've kind of got what you're left with. But at least you can get your hardest session in on a day when you say, you know what, I feel really good this day. Now, there are going to be some weeks where you don't feel good. And so, you know, and there's no reason you can't combine these, right? Like we talked about combining RPE with velocity. You can combine that with your weekly training effect. Let's say you're warming up, you've got 3 squat days per week, and you hit that point, that velocity that's lower than what you're used to, or lower than your average. Okay, well, maybe you'd scheduled your heavy day that day. Well, who says you have to do your heavy day? Do your lighter day, okay? And then come back in the next time, and you know, if that velocity's back up, then do your hard day. So there's a lot of ways you can program these things to take advantage of them. Now, again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. I personally like the idea of objective data from a bar velocity device and programming that way, or using a combination of percentages and RPE, you know, with a percentage base, but saying, okay, I'm not going over X RPE. Hope that's been helpful for you guys. I know we've been mostly doing nutrition stuff, but I wanted to do a training vlog. And if you have any questions, you can leave them below and I'll try to get to them. All right, guys, make sure you check out my website, biolane.com, and I'll catch you next time.